Welcome back to part 2 of this watercolour class. If you missed the first video, I will link it here where I talk about the watercolour techniques that I'm going to use in this painting. But for this video, we're going to go through the sketching. Out of all of my photos, I'm going to choose this one today. There's a lot of blues and purples and greens in it, so that's where the blend of colours came from in these other paintings. I'm going to move everything out of my way and I'm going to shut up my watercolours for a moment because I'm going to do some sketching. Again, all of the worksheets are available to download on Discord. The link is in the description below. I've done some research on the anatomy of a bee and I'm going to speed through this, but you can pause this and take a moment to look over the worksheet and join me again as I start sketching. We have the head, the thorax and the abdomen. All three of these are connected, and in between the connections of these body parts are pairs of legs. The forelegs, middle legs, and hind legs between these three body parts. As you're drawing, think about which sections of the body they are going to start from. With all of the pictures that I have, you cannot see all 6 of the legs. For example, in this one you can see 2. But with each photo, as I'm going through them, just have a look and see how many legs you can spot and how many sections of those legs you can spot as well, because sometimes you might only see half of it, or 2 out of the 3 legs on that one side. So the only time you would see all 6 of the bee's legs is if it was flat on a piece of paper. Think about if you would actually see the other side of the legs, or how the bee is clinging onto the flower, in which position their legs would be if they were holding onto that flower. As we go through, I will explain what I mean. With the legs, they are made up of sections. An easy way for me to explain it to you is almost like a sausage link. You've got 3 sections to each leg. Then at the end of each leg, you have a tiny little claw. When I add the legs to my bee sketches, I'll do the same thing each time, using the 3 sausage links and then adding a claw at the end. The wings are situated on the thorax, the middle part of the body. And again, where a bee is resting depends on how many of those wings you will see. Whether you will see part of one of them and the other is folded down, or if you see the bee from the top, maybe you will see them from different angles if the bee is leaning on a flower. Bees have 2 sets of wings. You have the forewing and the hind wing. They overlap and layer over each other. You can always add the venation pattern, the little veins, with a pencil, or you can add it after you've painted it. It's completely up to you. I wouldn't suggest painting those as we're working with wet watercolour paint. It's not going to be easy to control something that thin, so with these I just drew them on with a pencil after I was happy with the way that I had painted the wings. On top of the 3 sections of the body, the 6 legs and the 4 wings. On the head you have 2 eyes. The eyes are set to the side of the head, so you may only see one of the eyes depending on which way the bee is. From the top, you might see parts of both of the eyes and then finally the antennae. Sometimes you do see the mouth of the bee and the little tongue that sticks out, but that tends to be when it's inside the flower like this one. This is the little tongue of the bee because she's drinking up all of the nectar. On this photograph, you can see that we've got the head here with 1 eye that's visible and 2 antennae. We have the thorax where we can see part of the first set of legs. Then we've got the abdomen here, which curls around almost like a kidney bean shape. It curls around to hold onto the flower. And then between the thorax and the abdomen, we have the middle set of legs and the hind set of legs here too. You can only see 1 wing fully, but the other one is set behind the bee. The easiest way to break down these bees is to draw them as shapes. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. You have an oval shape for the head, then the thorax tends to be more of a circular shape, And the abdomen, again, is like an oval shape, but in some instances it becomes almost kidney bean shaped. Like here, you've got an oval, a circle, and then you've got a kidney bean shape, as if the bee were holding onto a flower. So again, a kidney bean shape, a little bit different from this one. When looking at a bee from the top, it's slightly more circular. Now, I don't usually do this, but I'm fine with leaving all of these sketchy lines visible. These are bees, they are not smooth, they don't have hard edges. Nothing in nature has hard edges, so don't worry about being perfect. With this, it's a bee, it's fluffy, and that's only going to add to your drawing. Once you've chosen the bee that you would like to sketch, it's as simple as getting ready to draw it. So I've just got myself a pencil. It's a bog standard HB pencil, something that I think most people will already have at home. If you want to go and use a hard pencil, you can do. I wouldn't suggest using a hard pencil and pushing because it will leave indentations on the paper. However, the softer you use, the darker that it will be, and you may see it through at the end. I'll use this as a practice paper to show you how I do it. I'm going to hold the pencil really, really lightly, and I mean so light that it almost drops out of my hand. I'm just going to practice doing some ovals. I'm going to move my hand in an oval shape. I'm not even touching the paper yet. And as I get closer to the paper, I'm going to be so light that I end up with, I don't know, 10, 20 oval shapes until I'm happy with the final shape that I've got here. Once I've done that, then I can always go in and go over the outline. This isn't necessary, and I don't want you to be so heavy-handed that you end up doing something like this and messing it up, or being really sketchy like this. It's not about how you sketch the outline. It's about being loose so that you can create these organic shapes just by moving your hands around. So we want oval shapes and then we want circular shapes. Again, we want to just move our hand around in a circular motion. We want to do 10, 15, 20 circles before we're happy with that circle. And smaller ones as well, you can do the same thing. It's just going to be slightly different when we're drawing the abdomen. So rather than sketching out a shape all in one, what I want you to do is create this kidney bean shape using 2 overlapping ovals. Once you have both of these ovals in place, you can go in and outline your final shape once you're happy with it. I won't ever erase any of these sketchy lines that I've put in because I'm going to be painting over it and the bee is going to be mostly black. There will be no need to erase any of those sketchy textures from your initial drawings. If you find it hard drawing an oval, the easiest way for me to explain it to you is just to draw 2 circles next to each other, like a snowman or a figure of 8, and then you simply join up the sides and it becomes an oval shape. Again, these are going to be really organic shapes. They're going to be smooth, they're going to be soft, they're going to be rough and sketchy, and that is what we want. With the wings here, it's almost like a teardrop shape, and again, I'm holding the pencil so lightly against the paper as if I would almost drop my pencil. Once I've drawn the first teardrop shape, I can overlap the second wing. It's not the same at the end, it is more flattened off than the other wing. When the bee is at a different angle, you might see it to the side. There are loads of different perspectives and angles, but just refer back to the photos and see how you can make those bees easier to draw. Just break it down into shapes. Have a little practice on your paper. This is what it's for. We're just experimenting with shapes and trying to get used to all of these organic movements as we are drawing on the paper. With the legs, they are more of a triangle, but if you create those and overlap them, and then towards the end you can add the claw, which is like a little fork. Or you can use the sausage link that I explained earlier as a way of creating those 3 joins, and then again the fork claw at the end. When you've painted it all black, you're not going to see the links of those sketches. Everything is going to be covered by the watercolor paint. So these sketchy, rough, loose lines are not going to be seen. If anybody has any questions about the shapes and the breakdown of the bees, just pop a comment below or even on the Discord, where there will be some frequently asked questions over there too. Now it's time for me to do my final sketch. I'm going to start off with the oval shape of her head. We're going to go really, really lightly with the pencil again. All the way through this sketch, we want it to be really, really soft. Like we did before, continuing to do a shape over and over until we are happy with that final sketch. I then can overlap with the thorax, which in this case is a circular shape. I want the head to kind of stand out a little bit on this, so I'm just going to make sure that that is more prominent. As you go through, you can add in some of the lines and where the stripes are going to be, just as a guideline for your final painting. On this bee, her abdomen is in a kidney bean shape, so I've gone in again and I've used the 2 ovals overlapping each other in order to get that shape correctly for me. Making sure that I am overlapping the body and adding the lines for where her stripes are. You can always make adjustments in these sketches if something looks a little bit off, but at the end of the day, we need to remind ourselves that we are not all trying to create the same image. We have our own styles, and that's what makes us unique. On her head, she has one eye that's visible, so I'm just going to map that in because I'll be lifting the paint out to create that eye. Sketching in the 2 antennae, and then we are on to the wings. With the wings, I'm just going to refer back to the photo because I can only see part of some of the wings and they are at different angles from some of the other sketches that we practiced today. I am going back and forth looking at the photo and sketching this out as best I can. So we have rough placement of everything that we want here apart from her legs. Just remember, between the head and the thorax you have 1 set of legs. I can just see part of that leg, so I'm going to draw a little sausage. The other 2 legs come from between the thorax and the abdomen. I can see 2 parts of it here, which means that there's 1 part that's going to go slightly into the body where we can't see it. So I'm just going to add those 2 little sausages and the claws on the end where she's gripping onto the flower. This is probably the only time I'm going to use my rubber to erase that final piece. So I've just decided that it's a little bit too long and I don't want her to look like a wasp. I'm not erasing any of the lines, I'm just making sure that I know where all the stripes are going to be, finalising my sketch. I don't need to be perfect about it. As she gets painted, all of these sketchy lines will get covered. Now I'm going to do something that I don't usually do, and I'm going to add a second bee into this drawing. This gives you a chance to watch how I do it again. I'll speed through the process this time using the same techniques as before. I've chosen a different bee, remembering it to be super gentle and sketchy, making sure that I have a loose grip on my pencil as I draw this bee. When you do your sketches, you can draw as many bees as you want. There is no right or wrong. I'm not using the eraser to remove any of those sketchy lines. I'm just using it to correct mistakes as I see them. Another good reason for you to use your pencils lightly. If there are any mistakes, you can erase them without leaving hard lines in the paper. There we go. So there are 2 sketches. Try not to overthink it. Just get the lines down. And once you're roughly happy with the shape, then you can go crazy with the paint. It doesn't have to be perfect. No 2 bees are exactly the same. I'm not comparing myself to previous pieces, I am simply drawing how I feel today. Links to all the videos will be in the description, as well as timestamps throughout this video. Now let's get to the good bit. I'm just going to mix up the paints again, making sure that I have enough of the colours that I want to use. Join me in the final part as we paint these bees and use all of the techniques that we learnt together in the first video. Also, don't forget, you can post your sketches and your final paintings on the Discord for us all to see.